Welcome back, everyone, to the Divine Feminine Healers podcast. I am so excited to have the PR expert, Allie, on the pod today. She has an amazing podcast with her friend, Cindy, who is a spiritual medium, and I love them both. I was on their podcast. I'll link all of that in the show notes, but I'm super excited to get her PR expertise on the pod today. Thanks for being here, Allie.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored.
So, a question I always ask my guest, and I know this will change like throughout your life, but I'm so fascinated with how we're all connected to the divine feminine in different forms. And so I'd love to hear, what is your current relationship with the divine feminine?
What's funny is I was, of course, binge listening to your podcast, and I feel like so many other women that came on had this same answer, but I had written it before I heard it. I swear to God. I feel like I am more of a masculine energy, and it's something that I have really had to work on, I think, as a business owner and as someone that is in such a male dominated industry. I'm in healthcare PR, and I'm dealing with a lot of really strong male personalities kind of every day. And it's something that I've really honed in on in the last year is kind of, I'm trying to think of how to say this in the right way, in a way that'll resonate with other women listening. But I think so often, we are made to feel like we have to apologize when we need something, or when we're quote unquote bothering somebody for something that we should be doing, or we get paid to do, and it's like, oh, so sorry to bother you. And it's like I have been it's so hard, but I have been deprogramming that out of myself. And it's like that classic joke, email like a man. I have had to work so hard at that. um so yeah, it isn't easy, but it's necessary. And I don't know if this counts as divine feminine or not, but I do feel like I am very connected to Mother Nature. I love to garden. It's so grounding for me. And I do it almost every single day. And it's funny because during the summer, literally will stop getting my nails done because I like to garden without gloves on. So my hands are touching the
Mm.
dirt, but it's probably disgusting. There's dirt under my nails, and there's, all this stuff. So long story short, I feel like I'm actually really bad at being in touch with my divine feminine. But if you have any tips, I will take them all.
No, that's so perfect. It's the journey that I think all women who listen to this podcast relate to so much because we have to step into our power. And like you said, we have to feel like we have to rise to the occasion of the men and following, not following in their path, but following in our own way of like being in our power in a feminine way. And I think we're just in this phase of like constantly transforming and refining. Digging your hands into the dirt is like one of my favorite tips to give women because it really helps them to pause, to slow down, to feel, to sense, which is where a lot of our gifts really come from. And I just been noticing myself, the medicine right now for me is always to pause, to stillness, to stop taking in more information and digesting more things. It's in those moments where I get the intuitive insights, where I get the clarity, and that's where I feel like it's a huge strength that we have as women. And that's when the ease and the flow really comes to us. So I think that that's like the perfect practice for that. And I think you're doing a great job of embodying the feminine. And it's so interesting that you say earth because I was thinking as you were talking, and I just like from knowing you, you to me represent like earth signs so much. And I usually tell my clients who to like lean into the element that they relate to the most. So I was like, yeah, of course. She's like earth element. I'm so curious if you know, I know you know what your three astrology signs are too.
Yeah, I'm Aries, Taurus, Cancer.
Yeah, definitely give me Cancer vibes for sure.
Oh my gosh, so interesting. Now I want to know more.
Well, the Taurus makes sense too. So I'm rising Taurus in Vedic astrology, and Taurus is all about is similarly with Cancer. It's all about home and grounding, but just like Taurus really likes having nice things. And in a
Yes.
different perspective of like, oh, I just like to like buy nice things for myself. Because at first when I heard that, I was like, ugh, like that sounds superficial.
Yeah.
But the thing about it is, I love the way that my teacher described it is that's how you actually recharge your battery and your energy is from like at the end of like a long, exhausting day, you come home to a beautiful home and you have these things in your home that like help you relax and help you unwind. And you're just like, oh, like I cannot sleep at a hotel where I'm like, get the ick from or whatever. Like I will
Yeah.
be so unwell. Like I need to
No,
feel a maximum comfort at all times.
I am completely with you. I think too, it goes hand in hand with like just peace in your surroundings. I feel like as I get older, and something I've really realized over the last year is like literally the most important thing in my life is my peace and is my inner peace. And um, having, my house be, like organized and look nice, and my bed have like really comfortable sheets and a fluffy comforter. And yeah, like those are the nice things that I feel like I really value and like seek out.
I love that. So, so interesting when I think about like the PR world and thinking about you and your like grounding, motherly, nurturing energy. And only because I've only been in the fashion PR world for like a year. And I was like, wow, this like, it took a toll on my body. I had like walking pneumonia. I was just like so out of balance, so much inflammation. I think it really kickstarted a lot of the chronic conditions that I had and led me to become a full-time yoga instructor at the time and through the Ayurveda world. So I'd love to hear like how you got into public relations, like, because there was probably that creative spark, that desire of like, yeah, like this is what I love about it. And I'd just love to hear a little bit about your journey in the PR world.
Yeah. So super simple explainer on what PR is. I think most people think it's something super complicated. In reality, it's not. It literally is just how the public views you and your relations to the public, right? So now in 2024, it encompasses so many different mediums, traditional media, so like magazines, newspapers, TV, non traditional media like podcasts, social media. Um, and I think the biggest thing is like, no, people do not realize that nothing that you see like online, in a magazine, in a newspaper happens by accident. It's because there is a publicist behind it. So if you're listening and you're like, so and so astrologer or medium or, feng shui expert was quoted in Glamour magazine, like why not me, or why, why them? It honestly is probably as simple as like that person has a good publicist that has relationships with journalists that place sources, or stories in the media then by working with that journalist. So that is how that works. And then how did I get into PR? So kind of a weird story that I'll try to keep short. So my freshman year of college, so I love fashion. I've always loved fashion. It just like lights a fire within me. I love putting together the perfect outfit and like really thinking through like events and social settings and whatever. And I've always been that way. And my freshman year of college, I started as an accounting major, which is the joke of the century because I can't do math to save my life. But I wanted to, my dad's an M&A, wanted to be like my dad. He's one of my, like my biggest inspirations. So started as an accounting major with an econ minor and was freaking miserable. Um, and I decided that as a passion project, I was going to start a blog, a fashion blog. And this was before like everybody and their dog had a blog. It was very new. So I'm 31 years old. So like I was 18 at the time. I literally can't, I once again
Wow.
cannot do math, cannot tell you how long ago that was, but like that's how long ago this was. And started doing it. And shockingly, people started reading it. And I was like, oh, I like really have something here. And at the end of my first year of college, was trying to figure out like what I could do that was related to blogging and like what I could major in. And I kind of realized like, oh, I'm kind of already doing PR. Like I'm already doing it for myself and working with brands and writing and pitching. And so my sophomore year, I changed my major to PR, and the rest was history. So that's how I decided that that's what I was going to do, and followed that track that eventually, I guess, took some interesting turns.
I love that you came in such a natural way, and it often is, it's always a thing that you never see coming. I was literally just thinking about this the other day because you hear often with like celebrities, like how they were in Hollywood and they were trying to get like a
Mhm.
job in acting for like 10 years. And then they finally, like, I think about Dax Shepard, if you listen to Armchair Expert, and like
Yes.
he was trying to be an actor and he had some success, but until he kind of
Yeah.
let go of that dream of thought he wanted, and then he has this huge, massive podcast, which is like way more like fits what it is for him. And I feel like we go through that so much of like thinking, oh, like I wanted to be this like incredible yoga instructor and like leading all of these retreats and things like that. And then you're like, oh, you naturally just like fall into your own ways and it comes to you in that way. So I love that that process happened for you.
Yeah. I think too, it's like talking about Jack Shepherd and stories like mine, which I think so many people have. It's the perfect example of like the universe redirecting you to something better
Mhm.
through like a hardship, right? Which isn't easy. And I like do not send me any. And I don't wish it upon anybody, but you look back and you're like, oh, okay, it all makes sense now.
Totally, totally. Yeah, no, no, thank you. I don't need to repeat my last Saturn return, but like, yeah, I know. Like, there's another one
Yes.
coming when I turn 60, and I'll have 30 years to recover before then.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I know. I'm like, we'll just be getting over it. And then,
So, a lot of women who are just starting their own business who listen to this podcast, and they're kind of like I feel like they're like on a bridge, right? And like one foot in their like last job that was like really draining them, and then like the other foot in and like I want to start my own business and like really teetering and needing help through that transition process. So I love to hear how you started to, yeah, when did you make that leap to build your own firm then and then leave the firm that you were at?
yeah. So I during college got sucked up by Nike. They were opening a concept store in Lincoln Park right by DePaul where I went to college, and they really wanted to target that, college age woman. Um, so I ended up getting hired to do college research with this team that was opening the store. Did that, was really, really lucky to kind of like learn everything there is to know from them. They were just absolutely amazing. Um, and then they closed the concept store. And I could have gone and worked at corporate after graduation. But kind of in this same window of time, somebody that I had interviewed for my blog, which was called Street Style Shy, ended up reaching out to me because they needed somebody to come and help them at Sundance Film Festival.
Wow.
So yeah, so it was really funny because the initial contact was it was an email sent at like 1 o'clock in the morning, and it just was like, "Hey, do you want to go to Sundance?"
No
And
way.
yeah, and I was like, yes. So talked to them and ended up going and helping with their celebrity relations because it was a publication that had a partnership with a brand. Um, so did that. So like I like to say it kind of happened by accident. It was an opportunity that came to me, and I just kind of had to decide, like in that moment, like, does it feel right to do things like this, or does it feel right, to go work for a corporate company? And I don't think that there was any wrong answer. And like for anybody listening, I think it's whatever works for you. And I don't think that there's any wrong answer there. But I was like, this feels right. So I worked at Sundance Film Festival for it was 4 or 5 years for this same media personality. And it's funny because looking back on it, I'd say it was like some of the best moments of my career and some of the worst moments of my career. And it really helped me to figure out like who I guess who I wanted to be in the world and what I was willing to tolerate and not tolerate from people that I work with. And that is a constant theme in my life that I'm still battling now. So that was the first part was transitioning into starting a celebrity and entertainment firm where we worked with a lot of personalities, a lot of media relations, things of that nature. And then a few years into starting that firm, I got really, really sick, which is not shocking because I don't think, looking back, that I was really living like my true purpose, which I really believe is helping others. So I got really, really sick with Lyme and tick-borne diseases, was essentially bedridden, for 2 years. And in that time, realized a lot of the hardships that people with tick-borne diseases face. Like most people don't realize the testing for the disease is 55% inaccurate. After 30 days, insurance doesn't have to cover your treatment. So people are just left to be like destitute, like it's horrible. So got really involved in the philanthropic side of the community and got to meet like literally thousands of patients across the US, like really understood their problems. And in that learned that people don't know how to talk to people with chronic illness.
Mm.
People don't understand what we want to see. They don't understand, how to speak to us, what we feel like is supportive language in the media and in advertising and on social media. So I decided that if I was going to go back to work, I was only going to do something that I really felt like benefited the patient community. Um, and I was so sick, I thought I would never work again. Thankfully, slowly but surely, it started to get better. And so when I did go back to work, which was about 5 years ago, I went into healthcare PR and started my own healthcare PR firm. So I'm like, despite the fact that both firms have the same name, I feel like I've started two firms and I'm only 31 years old.
Wow.
Um, but yeah, so I kind of had to like lay to rest, the celebrity and entertainment identity because it just was not in alignment with myself. Um, so I feel like that I'm like, long story short, but then that was still a very long story.
Oh no, I mean, that was great as far as timing wise and refining it and making it all packaged in something. I have like so many questions. Okay, so how did you start? I don't know exactly how the PR world works. So you started your own firm when you were working with Sundance Festival, but how does that work if like they were giving you kind of like the opportunity and like this pool of clients? Is that how it works at PR? Like you have to start your own firm?
So it's all connections based in PR. It's all about like, I don't want to say it's all about who you know, but it's all about networking. And for me, it was an interesting situation because I was contracted out by someone that had a partnership with Sundance Film Festival and with a brand, with a car brand actually. So I was going there to work with this personality, and with the festival, but I was not contracted out by like Sundance themselves. So like I didn't work for Sundance. And then through that, I made a lot of connections and it was a lot of word of mouth. Like I'm a believer that if you do good work, naturally you will have work come to you. And that's still pretty much how I operate. I'm a lot more out there now than I was, just because of how my company has grown. But it's not like natural for me to be self-promotional. So yeah, I think it's very networking based, and I would say too, like I was a very unique situation. Um, and I am not trying to discourage anyone from, if you're in PR and you want to start your own firm, I'm not trying to discourage you from doing so, but make sure that you get the necessary experience first to set yourself up for success.
Totally.
Um, there's no rush. Like you have a lifetime to do this work.
Totally. Wow, that's literally so incredible to hear the success of both of those firms. Now I'm curious, what I always talk about with my clients is like kind of exposing the core wound in our story. It's kind of like a karma. It's this thread that shows up again and again. So it feels like we've healed
Yeah.
the layer, and then a couple years later we're like, this again, but it's different, right? Because
Yeah.
we've healed the layer and it's just a little bit fresher. So what is that layer for you? And I imagine it's tied to healing your body and your body telling you when something's out of alignment and literally having to shed like a whole identity in order to step into the other. But yeah, I just would love to hear specifically like what are some of those limiting beliefs that really surrounded you from making that transition?
Yeah. So I would say it's interesting because a common thread for me throughout my career has been people not being very kind that I work with. And
Mm,
it's funny because I'm a very strong person, I'm a very confident person. Um, I don't love conflict and I don't love uncomfortable conversations. And it's something that, like, really over the past year, I've had to put a lot of work into rewiring myself and getting comfortable with those things. And I hired an executive coach and like really took the steps to try to unwind that. And I'm still, working on it now, a year later. But looking back at Sundance, there was a shift in how I was treated from my first Sundance to my fourth or fifth. And by the time that I got to my last one, it was like one of the worst experiences I've ever had because I was treated so poorly.
mm,
And I don't think that I understood at the time that like that wasn't okay. Like I just was like, oh, this is how the industry is,
right.
and I'm frustrated, but whatever. So I think it was like a little bit of a shake in confidence in relation to career. And that's a theme for me that has come up repeatedly. And it gets better for a while and then it pops up again. It gets better for a while and it pops up again. And I feel like I'm constantly having to work on it. And I think the other, it's not necessarily a limiting belief, but I think the other piece of this and like learning curve that I've really had, it's just like simply maturity. Like I started my businesses basically when I was like 21 or 22 years old. And you just don't know what you don't know, right? Like you don't know what systems you should have in place. You don't know what organizational efforts you should have in place. You're still learning like how to communicate in a professional sense and how to be confident in yourself. And um, once again, like I think it's really only in the past year that I have like truly stepped into my power and believe like, excuse my language, like, holy shit, I can do this. You know what I mean? Like I can do this. And the only person that's stopping me is you. And my executive coach, Steph Beagle, who is amazing, um, sometimes has to say to me, she's like, sometimes you just have to get out of your own way. And I'm like, yeah, you're literally exactly right. Um, and I really had to shift my mindset into being a business owner and not just somebody who's like helping others, which is something I really struggle with that I'm getting better at. Um, and yeah, my health and my health battle has been a constant theme, obviously, in my life. And once again, like really working over the last 2 years to like deprogram myself into thinking that I can't get better and that I'm limited by my health and that I have to wait until I am physically better to like live my life, which just isn't the case, right? Like we all have our shit, whether it's health stuff, whether it's life or personal, like whatever it is, like, and we can't let it stop us from living our life. Um, so yeah, very much actively working on all of those things and limiting beliefs. I think um, it's a long-term effort.
Totally. I think this really relates to me and Ayurveda, I always categorize into the different energy types, and I'm hearing a lot of themes of the Kapha, the earth sign, and I get
Mm,
a lot of healers like this because naturally they're nurturers, they're moms,
mhm.
and they love to help people and they love to serve others. But the biggest lesson for them, time and time again, is always boundaries and learning how to say no. And I love that you said like having systems in place is so important because that's where it becomes kind of like the bumpers where it's like, gosh, why do I keep getting this client who like tries to like get things for free or like doesn't respect my
Mhm.
time and like whatever it is. But when you have those certain systems in place, then it kind of like weeds out those people so you don't even have to like deal with
Yeah.
them anymore in a sense. But at the same time, yeah, that like it's a lot of trial and error and experience, and it has to be healed on a lot of different levels. And I think that's why healers experience this so much in their body because boundaries is all about getting and putting your own needs and wants first. And especially as
Yeah.
an entrepreneur, like you are the CEO, you're the leader, like you call the
Mhm.
shots. And when you're not used to doing that, because so much of your needs and wants can be enmeshed with what other people want and need, because you get a lot of joy out of that. It's such a great challenge to overcome as a CEO to finally like step into your power in that way and be like, oh yeah, like I actually really fucking good at what I do and I know what I'm doing and I can get the success. Like, why would I even question that for something like that? And then when you get those scenarios again, because you have that level of confidence, you're like, yeah, no, psh, and just like
Yeah.
toss it aside, which is awesome. I love to hear like what are some of your like favorite boundaries or maybe some of the systems that you use to kind of like put bumpers on those people that have taken advantage.
Yeah, I think so. This is going to sound kind of woo. Something I've had to really force myself to do is get really, really clear on the type of client that I am calling in. I, about a year ago, almost to the date, started journaling every single morning. And I started with gratitude at first because I just was going through a really rough patch after going through an experience where I just was treated like complete shit by a client. Um, and was like like you just hit a point, I feel like, in certain situations and in life where you're like something has to change and it has to change now. And the next morning started journaling gratitude, and eventually it evolved into I journal. I don't want to say everything, but I journal like everything. And when I'm working to like call in new clients or to set standards of like how I want my working relationships to go, like I will write lists and just be super clear about what that is and like what I'm looking for and the type of person that is. And um like right now, in probably 1 to 2 months, I'll be ready to take on another large scale client. And I started journaling about it actually over the weekend. And my number one thing is I want them literally just to be kind, good humans.
Mm,
Right. And like that really for me is all that matters. And then I write my list of like everything else I want that's kind of like an added bonus in the specifics. But I think getting really specific about what you want is super helpful because we don't always take the time to do that. I also think that I have gotten really comfortable with either saying, or if I get an email that I don't like the tone, I will say, this email is outside of professional bounds. And when you are ready to have a conversation within professional bounds, reach out to me.
yeah.
And more often than not, on the rare occurrence, yeah, somebody's an asshole and they push back on something, but more often than not, when you call somebody out on it, they will say, oh, I'm so sorry. That was a moment of, me being an asshole, basically, and let's talk about this or whatever it is. Um, I also, and I'm not sure if this is really answering your question, but it's something that I feel really passionate about right now. Have put in since January a lot of work around my adrenals and my adrenal fatigue so that I do not go right away into like a fight or flight response. And then at least like I can control how I'm reacting in situations. And I can bounce back faster. Like I think being an entrepreneur, a huge thing is how quickly you can bounce back from setbacks or uncomfortable conversations because you have so much going on that you can't dwell on them. You don't have the time, or your other parts of your business suffer. And I have really strong boundaries around my morning routine and my nighttime routine. I have people are going to hear this and be like, she's a psychopath. Cause I literally, my morning routine is like hours, and I will get up at, hours before I have to. Like I'm up at like this morning I was up at 5 o'clock, which I would not recommend. I just woke up and was up, but normally I'm up between 6 or 6:30 so that I could have a solid like hour and a half to like I call it my pitter patter time to like just hang out and like read and journal and pull cards and do red light therapy and get my hands in my garden. And I have really firm boundaries around that with clients where like if somebody wants to schedule a meeting with me before 8 or 8:30, I basically am like, nope, not available.
Love it.
Um, and same thing with my nighttime. Like I love cooking. I try to cook dinner almost every night. And when we're home, obviously, and not traveling. And when I kind of that for me starts like my wind down routine and like my boundary of like, okay, I'm leaving work, even though I mostly work at home and I'm cooking dinner. And then setting up, my nighttime routine. It's something that I've just had to be really cognizant of. So anyway, sorry for that tangent.
Oh my gosh, no, these are all so, so helpful. I know all the girlies are like either the reminders or they're like, yes, I need to be doing that. And I know that's what really
Mhm.
feeds me. The being with your own energy in the morning is so important. I think about this all the time when like I have the inclination to like start listening to a podcast even in the morning that could
Yeah,
be inspirational, but it's me penetrating someone else's aura and energy rather than just getting to know how I'm feeling today and checking in
yeah,
so that I feel really clear and I know what my own energy feels like without lugging other people's stuff throughout the day is huge. So I love that one so much. And even the email response is super helpful because I work on with a lot of my Kappa clients just that. Like, how do I word this? Like just
yeah,
wanting to like not like you said, avoid conflict and not wanting to like ruffle anyone's feathers. That's like the perfect way to word that. So thank you for those.
yeah, yeah,
Okay, I kind of want to pivot here and is get into all of like your juicy wisdom with PR and see how we can kind of apply this to a lot of the wellness entrepreneurs that listen. So, first question that I have, what are some of like the general PR practices that wellness entrepreneurs would really benefit from knowing and starting their business? And so like, these are entrepreneurs who maybe are like just starting their Instagram, like very at the beginning stages. They
yeah,
may have like a website, they may have like started things from word of mouth, but like they're just trying to get it up and running and to start getting in clients.
yeah. So I would say there's a couple of things here for using PR to like leverage your small business. And don't feel like you have to do all of these things at one time. Because I know it sounds overwhelming. So if you are like either a personality or you are a brand or a wellness business, or anybody with like some kind of expert source within your company, you can be doing source requests. And essentially, what a source request is like, let's say you're reading Real Simple and it's an article on why everybody should be consuming vitamin C. And then you see that there's like a doctor's quotes throughout that article. That's a source for then that magazine. And typically they're pretty like low lift and the barrier to entry is not as great versus like a feature story or a feature article. And there's sources that you guess I shouldn't use the word source and source interchangeably. There are resources that you can use to get source requests. So one of like my favorites when we were starting out was Harrow. I think now it's called Connectively. But basically, journalists will send out a list of requests for sources every single day that then you can go and just submit yourself for or your source or expert at your company. So source requests are great. I might be biased, but I love podcasts. For a lot of my clients, podcasts are the number one refer to their businesses. They're the number one refer for product sales. It's not traditional media anymore. Podcasters have a loyalty that other forms of media do not have. So look at some podcasts that are aligned for your business or for your expert and send them, an email and see if you can get on their podcast. Um, the other thing that I really like for product-based companies is seeding or like essentially it's sending samples or sending like gifted product to like micro influencers or to media for like product like roundup considerations. Um, I think those are probably the best PR tactics for somebody that is starting out with PR. I do have a free ebook on my website, amarescopr.com, that literally is a crash course in PR and social media. So that goes into a lot more detail on each of these things and hopefully will be a good resource for people listening.
That is so perfect. We'll definitely have that free resource linked below. And yeah, I love all of those. I think that's like great just to like get the ground running. What do you recommend when reaching out to micro influencers? So a lot of the entrepreneurs are service based. So would you recommend, maybe giving them your offer for free or at like a very discounted price so then they can then post about it?
Yeah, I think with micro influencers, what I've seen is affiliate programs are huge if you can um, afford to do that. Like affiliate programs are huge where you give them a percent of the sale and or you give them like a custom discount code, and it's nice because you can customize those codes so you can see who's selling and who's not selling and maybe who you might want to leverage in like a future partnership more for like a flat rate or something like that. A lot of micro influencers that are, I'd say, like 3 to 5,000 or less in following typically are really excited just to get free product or samples. They're working so hard at what they do. Obviously, content creation, if you're doing it well, there's so much effort that goes into it. So that's probably going to be your like demographic that is interested in receiving free product in exchange for like an Instagram story. Um, as a brand or a business, I also would look at like a lot of people just look at vanity metrics, right? Like likes, and that's pretty much it. And what I really like to look at is engagement. I do not like vanity metrics. And I also like to know, and this is for probably if you're like flat rate compensating somebody, you'll want to know this, but like, what do their shares look like? What do their saves look like? Because to me, as somebody that represents a lot of brands, like that is the most important thing. Because it means that people are referencing back to their posts and they're creating high value content. So I would definitely check that out and like check out their aesthetic. Like, is it something then that you can use to repost on your own feed, or maybe in like some UGC content? But yeah, I would just build a list and get organized and then start, you know, set a goal. Like if you want to reach out to 10 micro influencers every month and stick with that and see what works for you. It's a lot of trial and error.
I love that. On the note of micro influencers, for those entrepreneurs who are kind of stepping into that space themselves, like a lot of
Mhm.
new Ayurveda products, and they're small businesses and they usually want to like send them free product, or maybe build a relationship. Maybe it's actually a product that they use regularly, and we're talking micro influencers anywhere from like 3K to 10K usually, and they're getting in these
Yeah.
offers. I think that it could be really confusing because sometimes that brand doesn't really know what they're doing with the PR thing, and they're just
Mhm.
kind of like reaching out randomly. And then on our side of things, it's kind of like, well, should I pursue this? Like, would this actually be lucrative? So, what is your thoughts on micro influencers leveraging brand partnerships in order to make another stream of income?
Yeah. So a couple of things there. So something I quickly just want to add for people with brands or like a product to offer that they want to seed to influencers, when you reach out to these micro influencers, be crystal clear on what you're asking. Like to your point, where sometimes that is just so confusing when you get an email and you're like, what do they actually want from me? Like, be so clear with them so that they can properly evaluate the opportunity. So, for micro influencers, I think there's a couple of different things here. Kind of like I said on the brand side, if you are trying to attract in brand deals as a micro influencer, what I'm looking at is like, what's the quality of your content? Is it high quality? What does the caption look like? Is it good, valuable information? Is it unique content? What does your engagement look like? And if it's product based, like I always love to see an example of like how much product have you moved before, either in an affiliate program or a brand deal. I think another opportunity here for micro influencers is UGC content, so user generated content. And this is different and it's special because your metrics don't really matter. It's all about the type of content you are creating, because what a lot of brands want this for is that so they can buy like limited use rights from you. So, like, they might say, we're going to offer you $1,000 for you to create one video for us that's 30 seconds long, and we have the rights to use this for, you know, 60 days, and then we get first right of like extension. So then we'll pay you another $1,000 to run this for another 60 days or whatever their guidelines are, like based off of what type of creator you are. Because their goal is to take that then and run it in meta advertising to bring people into their site. So UGC content is a great thing. And I know like entire platforms dedicated to UGC content now. I know there's a website called From the Lobby that does a lot of gifted content, and it's not, unfortunately, they don't pay a lot. It typically is like 75 to $150 for a video. But I know that a lot of brands like Magic Spoon and Skin Gym and a lot of like those types of brands solicit UGC content deals through there. But also just cold email brands and say like, I'm a UGC creator. Here's some info. Like, would love to be considered. Um, the other thing I want to mention here is affiliate programs for micro influencers. Um, Consistency is key with affiliate programs. It typically takes people 10 plus exposures to something before they're actually like taking the action that you're asking them to. So like click the link, buy the product, hit the subscription. Um, so yeah, so work like if you're in some really good like lucrative affiliate programs, like if you're making 20% of a sale that's $250 or whatever it is, like work it into your content calendar consistently and in a really altruistic way. And if nobody's purchasing upfront, like do not give up on that. Um, the other thing I also want to mention is don't forget about like organic content because when you're not posting organic content or like unsponsored content, your community will get fatigued and they will unfollow you or just skip your content in your stories. And ultimately, then that hurts your chances with brands, right? Because then they're not going to want to work with you. Um, One other tip I want to give here that I don't know if people really think about when they are working with brands or like after you've gotten the brand deal and that big yes, or if you've joined an affiliate network, is don't be afraid to have a checklist that you ask of the brand. Like, I would like to collaborate on this reel. I would like a newsletter mention of my, like, highlighting my content. Get something in return, like, additionally from your work that's kind of like in kind versus paid, so that you can also tap into their audience just as much as they're tapping into yours. So, hopefully, those were some good tips for micro influencers.
Yeah, literally gold mines in there. Thank you so much for laying that out. I'm curious when you're kind of pitching the one post type of UGC content to brands and versus the affiliate, would you recommend trying to set up like an elongated partnership? Do partnerships usually like to say like, okay, let's see one post and how it performs and then go through it? Just speaking from personal experience, I find that the issue with this is like the reason why I think affiliates work well is because they see the content over and over again. If you just do like one paid ad, I feel like that has to work for brands that are just have a bigger following and they can get more views on that. So, yeah, is it normal to see like packages and working in an extended time creating content with the brand versus just like a one and done type of post?
I, so for campaigns or like promotional campaigns, absolutely. It's way more common now to see brands saying, if we're like a supplement brand, we want exclusivity with you for 3 months and we want one reel a month and 12 stories and blah, 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 blah. Because brands now are starting to understand, or at least ones that have some type of affiliate slash influencer slash PR knowledge are savvy enough to know that that's what's going to benefit them more in the end. Um, so longer term deals are typically preferred depending on the creator. I would say for just like cut and dry UGC content, a lot of that tends to be one and done simply because meta strategies evolve so quickly. And I'm in PR, I'm not in marketing, so I can't speak to it at like a crazy high level. But I do know from the work I do and from the marketing firm counterparts that I work with, like literally their strategies change from one week to the next. Um, so that content's just moving super fast. The other thing that people can consider if they don't love like the sales side of being an influencer is like don't be afraid to get an agent. Like one of my really good friends, Erin Christie, is an influencer agent based out of Nashville. And like the deals that I see that she is able to get for creators that are anywhere from like 20,000 followers to 100,000 followers are really freaking good deals. And it's like there's a reason now that role exists. They're almost like publicists for influencers, right?
Yeah,
Um, so don't be afraid to like look at something like that too.
love that. Last question. What are some of the business trends that you're noticing for this year? Things that maybe have already happened, and then some things that you're like kind of already seeing on the horizon?
I think one thing that I find really fascinating that I think we're going to continue to see be a trend in 2024, 2025 is people, so like personalities, brands, um, so on and so forth, are starting to take their content in-house. And what I mean by in-house is they are literally creating their own social networks.
Mm,
Um, People, consumers, I mean, and brands, but like consumers are sick of the algorithms. They're sick of like the censorship that goes on, where like if you want to talk about vitamin C or whatever it is, like Instagram suppressing your post for whatever reason, like things like that, it's like too much too far. And I think we're seeing the repercussions of that. So brands and people are starting to take their social networks in house. Something that I think we're going to continue to see get really, really popular are platforms like Mighty Networks, where it's super easy to like, I don't want to say it's super easy because I've worked on them for clients and it's actually a lot of labor. But it's compared to building your own app from the ground up with like coders and tech people and whatever, you can kind of like drag and drop and, drop and play and whatever, like the different parts of an app that you want and like create your own private network. And this way, the people that are really fatigued from like Facebook and Instagram aren't having to deal with that. And you're really getting the people that are like true to your brand or true to your community. Um, so that I think we're going to continue to see be really popular. The other thing is Substack subscriptions and newsletter subscriptions. I think consumers are starting to return a little bit to long form content
mhm.
and they are really hungry for unique takes on things and things that are going to entertain them but not overwhelm them. So Substack and newsletters, I think, are going to be really important. And I think the last thing, which makes me really happy because I have a mission driven PR firm, is I think companies are going to be forced to return to their purpose and to mission driven work and stories. I think our generation and the generations to come really care about the mission and values of companies. Um, so that I think we're going to see be really, really prevalent. I mean, there's also like whole other tangent could go into like AI generated content, things like that, which we will absolutely see and is absolutely a huge trend. But that's a whole other beast.
Yes, that is a whole other beast. I love that you mentioned the purpose driven because I feel like that's just anyone who listens to this and who's starting their business, like they wouldn't even question it, just like how you didn't even question when you were building your next firm. Like that's what you wanted it to be. And when you look at marketing now, like you can see bullshit so easily. Like, and I think the reason why TikTok is so huge is because it's so BTS, like so scrappy. Like there was that whole trend where people were just like eating their dinner, like talking about their day. And I was like, I'm in this, like so
Yes,
interested
yes.
and intrigued. And the more that you can just like imbue that into your business, the more that you're going to see that authenticity and like actually create real type of clients because they feel really connected to you. And I love hearing more network communities. That's where everyone is going. Again, like I think that's we're already seeing this on Instagram with like the subscriber feature that they have of like creating your even like your own little like private community within there. So like it's more controlled and you're feeling like you can actually have that more direct contact. That's why I think membership is so amazing and huge for entrepreneurs who are starting out because you really get to curate your own communities no matter like all these other things that can pop up.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Totally agree.
Well, there's like literally a wealth of knowledge on this podcast. I'll be listening to it like at least 5 times more. I'm so grateful to have you on and that you shared so much of your wisdom on here. It's going to be immensely helpful for so many entrepreneurs who listen to this podcast. And I'd love for you to share how our community can connect with you and learn to work with you. We're definitely going to link that free resource below because I know that that will help people so much starting with their PR and their business.
Oh, I'm so glad. So I would say the easiest way to connect with me is probably through Instagram. It's at Allie T Moresco. And if you want to learn more about PR and social media, I have a lot of resources on my website, amorescopr.com. Don't be afraid to email me to reach out if you have any questions that are like really specific or want to talk about media, things like that. Yeah, I think those are probably the best ways.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Allie. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day, everyone. Bye.
Bye.